Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and my channel is called Your Tree Shelf. Today I am filming a wrap up for a single book and we're going to do a full review of the book Immune, which is by Philipp Dettmer, who is the creator of a channel called Kurzgesagt in a Nutshell, which is a channel which has 20 million YouTube subscribers, so a massive channel. This book was sent to me by Tandem Collective, who ran a read-along for this book during the month of January. So I finished reading the book now and I'm going to do a full wrap up of my final thoughts of the book. So I'm going to talk you through the different sections in the book, tell you some cool facts about the immune system, and I'm also going to think about who might want to read this book and what my thoughts were. So who is this book for? So as you can see by the front cover, this does not look like a boring science book, because a lot of science books look kind of boring. They don't have bright colours, nice pictures, interesting facts. So I'm a doctor, for those of you who don't watch my channel normally, and I am very used to reading particularly dry medical books, especially during my university degree, and this is much more exciting than that. So anybody can read this book. So it's for anybody who's interested in the immune system, basically. Anyone who's interested in non-fiction or science would enjoy this book. And I think as well, anybody who's ever had an illness or cancer or an autoimmune condition would also potentially find this interesting, because it talks through those problems. So let's just make a start on what this book is about in terms of the different sections. So the first part of this book is called Meet Your Immune System. So it doesn't assume any prior knowledge. There are lots and lots and lots of cells in the immune system which have quite complex functions, and there's messengers and things between the cells, and it's not necessary to have any knowledge prior to reading this book. So when he goes through, he's going to start telling you some pretty cool facts about the immune system, when it developed, how many millions of years ago, and why. And then he's also going to talk about what is there to defend in the immune system. So it talks about different entry and exit points in the body, and how sort of germs get in. And it's really fascinating to learn about all the different bits of your body, from like your mouth, your ears, your eyes, your nose, all the different kinds of entry and exit portals of your body, to work out how they are defending themselves against bacteria and viruses and other pathogens. I thought the section about the skin was particularly cool, and one of the facts that I really enjoyed reading about was about tattoos. So I have tattoos myself, and it talks about how your immune system isn't really cool with the idea of having ink put into your skin. However, the ink particles are too big for macrophages, which are cells that gobble up things that shouldn't be there. The ink particles are too big to be gobbled up, but as each layer of macrophages dies over time, is replaced by new ones, it sort of shifts the ink particles a little bit, and that's why tattoos can get a little bit less crisp as the years go on, which I thought was a cool fact. So there are really just interesting facts interspersed throughout the book as well. So after we've learned about what are the basics of the immune system, it talks about the simple sort of bits of the immune system, which is the bits you're born with, the innate immune system. And then it also goes on to talk about the more complex adaptive immune system, which has a lot more sort of sophisticated ways of hunting down things that shouldn't be there and killing them, basically. So after we've learned about the first parts of the immune system, we then start learning about other things, so about the weapons of the immune system, so things that we can do to kill off things that shouldn't be in our bodies. So like how the complement system, which is a system of proteins, can attack bacteria. We learn about there's a chapter called The Murder University of the Thymus, which talks about cells called T cells, which are made in your thymus, which is a gland in your chest. And so that has catchy titles for all of the chapters like that. So when they're talking about different cells, that he gives the cells personalities and characteristics to try and make it easier to understand what those cells were. So I talked in my wrap up for the month of January about how he calls neutrophils chimpanzees on cocaine with machine guns. So basically they're just going bonkers, like destroying everything without much care. And then there's other cells which take like absolute scrupulous care about what they destroy, and they have to have not just sort of one thing activated, but 2 steps activated to make the destruction happen. If it wasn't more complex to activate them, it would mean that we destroyed the wrong kinds of cells more often. And also it talks about how inflammation in our bodies is a good thing in terms of getting rid of certain problems. Like, for instance, there's an analogy which runs through the first chapter about if you step on a nail and it goes through your skin, and all the different pathways that would be activated because of that to eliminate the bacteria which had entered your foot through the nail. And it says that, so the inflammation in that side of things is a good thing. But then if we have too much inflammation, it can cause massive problems throughout our body. And so we need to do damage control as well. So it sort of explains how different steps have to be activated in order to do damage control in the body. So we spend quite a lot of time learning about bacteria and how to get rid of them. But then there are some special circumstances. Like, for instance, we have bacteria throughout our bodies where they actually help us. So, for instance, we've got tons of bacteria in our gut, and gut health is like a really big separate topic, really. But it talks about how the bacteria in our gut, a lot of them are friendly bacteria, and we don't want to be killing those ones off because they keep at bay bacteria which are going to harm us. So that's why, for instance, if you have antibiotics, you take out a lot of the good gut bacteria, and that's why you can get gut infections, diarrhea, different things like that as a side effect of having antibiotics. We learn about the bacteria in our skin and our respiratory tract and our gut, which are actually helpful to us, and how our body has sort of really sophisticated technology to recognise, oh, those bacteria aren't going to harm us, those ones are fine, we'll let them stay. But it gets rid of the bad ones. So I just found like so many things in this book that I was like, wow, like, this is so fascinating. And like how amazing our bodies are, like so amazing. So we then move on to a section about viruses, and viruses are a bit of a different ballpark to bacteria because viruses actually hide inside our cells. So bacteria are much easier to spot, and for a virus, it goes inside our cells, it reproduces inside our cells and kills our cells off, but it also keeps itself hidden, so it's a lot harder for our bodies to find it and destroy it. And they can also replicate super quickly. So within just a short time, so it says a single virus within half a day can go through 5 reproductive cycles and turn into millions just in half a day. So again, we have to be able to recognise these viruses and act. And one of the things which I found really, really fascinating is these molecules called MHC molecules. So he does talk about how in the book the names of the cells are pretty annoying, and it would be so much easier if we called them better names so that they were easier to pronounce and remember. But MHC molecules are basically like, there's 2 types, there's type 1s and type 2s. So type 1, they're these little windows on cells. So basically, to put it in like the kind of terms that he uses in the book, when the cells of our body are kind of patrolling and looking for things that shouldn't be there, they can look inside cells through these little MHC class 2 class 1 molecules, which are like little windows into the cells. So it's kind of like, you know, police are patrolling, they're looking through the windows in people's houses to see what's going on. Just because I can't see anything from the outside doesn't mean there's not anything going on in the inside. That's a little bit what it's like. And then there's the same molecules which are class 2 MHC molecules, and he likens them to hot dogs and hot dog rolls. So basically, I'll show you the picture because it probably makes it easier to understand. This is what the molecule looks like. So it looks like a hot dog roll. That you then find an antigen. So an antigen is basically a foreign piece of cell material, which is like the hot dog, and the hot dog has to go into the hot dog bun, and then our body will be like, oh, look what's going on here, and then it will activate other cells which will kind of come and destroy the cell which has got the antigen in it. So and this is like the windows that I talked about before. So it might sound complicated, but how he presents it just makes it all the more fascinating. And so after we've talked about viruses, it then talks about, first of all, shutting the immune system down, because obviously once the threat has gone, we then don't want an immune reaction and inflammation and things to be carrying on when the threat is gone, because then we just cause trouble for our bodies through inflammation that's not needed. So it talks about how to turn off the immune system. Then it talks a little bit about vaccines, so about how vaccines work, about how they were developed, and about the diseases which have been eradicated through vaccines. And then then there's another section which is called Rebellion and Civil War. So this is basically talking about allergies, HIV and AIDS, and then autoimmune disease. So basically sort of when our bodies get it wrong and start attacking ourselves, or reacting to something that we shouldn't be reacting to, which is perceived as a threat, like peanuts, for instance, but isn't actually a threat, and the body's reaction actually causes massive harm to us. And then there's a section on cancer, because there are cancer cells which are produced in our body all the time where the coding in our different cells goes wrong, and our body detects those and destroys them. So all the time, like, he did quote a statistic about how many cancer cells may have been spotted and destroyed in our body just whilst we've read the book, which is kind of scary and interesting at the same time. And then so he talks about when this goes wrong and cancer happens. The very last part of this book is talking about the coronavirus pandemic, which is quite interesting because it was very much like there wasn't a vaccine for it when he was writing this book, and he was talking about a vaccine possibly being developed. And so it's quite interesting to see how things progressed since he wrote the book. I'm just going to show you some examples of some of the pictures in this book, because I've done a lot of talking and I don't want you to miss out on how cool the artwork is of this book. So for instance, we've got really simple pictures, like we've got a picture of a cough, which tells us when we cough, then hundreds of droplets filled with millions of viruses shoot through the air. The larger droplets hit the ground soon, but the lighter ones spread out through the air, forming long-lasting clouds for clueless bystanders to breathe in. So it's really kind of simple, gross pictures like that. And then there's more complicated pictures. This one here, just trying to get it so the light doesn't shine on it. This one here is about killer T cells, so which are these cells, and they're scanning to look for those MHC molecules I talked about before, so like the hot dog buns and the windows, to see if anything is going on. And if they see any antigens, they will basically start the killing process once they're properly activated. So there's more complicated ones like that. And this one, again, this is another sort of slightly more complex picture, but this is about allergies, and talking about histamine release here from, every time I turn the page you can't see, this is talking about like histamine release from mast cells here, which is what causes allergic reactions to happen. And then right at the back of the book is your sort of key to everything. So if you're feeling a bit lost at any point, you can go back and refer to this. And this is all the different types of cells in the immune system. All the arrows are different colours, so they represent different things, like which cells change into each other, which ones are activated by each other, how they communicate, which ones attack and kill, which ones produce antibodies. So that's your sort of little key at the back. It does do lots of summarising in this book. So if you feel like, I had some bits of the book where I thought, okay, I can't remember quite what those cells do. And then he would literally then say, remember when we met these cells in this chapter, and this is a quick reminder of what they do and stuff. So it's not, you don't get lost with this. We read in the readathon over 13 days. So we read sort of about 20 or 25 pages a day. And I'd say that's about the right kind of size chunk to read, because whilst it's easy to understand, I think if you read sort of 50 or 100 pages in one go, you may well sort of get a bit overwhelmed with information. So I think that that is a good I think it's a good size. Who would I give this book to? So I think anyone who's interested in popular science, anyone who's thinking about a career going into anything medical or like scientific of any kind would be cool. If you had like a young person who's interested in science, I'd say you probably need to be maybe GCSE age to be able to read this book. Or if you've got somebody who is having any problems, like I say, with their health, and you might find that they're interested in learning a little bit about how amazingly cool their body is. But just being fascinated, I never fail to find the body so fascinating. The fact that all these things are going on while we have absolutely no idea what our bodies are doing and how amazing they are. They're just incredible. That's who I give this book to. Cool facts. So I already talked about the tattoos. I already talked about the MHC molecules, which I thought were really cool. And then this is a picture representation of the cells in our body. So I'm going to move this closer. This here, this tiny little dot, represents all humans alive. So 7.8 billion humans. And then all of these individual dots represent, in comparison, how many cells are in our body. So we have 40 trillion cells in our body, which is absolutely incredible. I just think, like, yeah, that's amazing. So that's what I have to say about this book. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I have linked in the description box down below the In a Nutshell channel for you to go and check out the videos. They're basically like science videos where he explains a concept in a nutshell with lots of nice illustrations. And also I will link I'll put the link in if you want to go and buy the book as well. So yeah, so that was my wrap up of Immune. And thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.